Illustrator number 5 is about creating custom gradients and patterns, and the thing that came along in lesson 4 was about gradients and patterns, but they weren't custom gradients and patterns. This is where you define it yourself. You make your own colors, you make your own options, you make your own patterns, and that's what this is about. There's an artboard provided for this assignment. It doesn't have that much on it. It's just to help organize a little bit. So that's going to be posted on Google Classroom. It is not at the time that I'm recording this, but it will be by the time you're watching this. So you can go to Google Classroom and download the artboard that is provided for the assignment and get that open in Illustrator. Custom gradients and patterns are, you build them yourself. So you can't just drag and drop from the gradient library or from the pattern library. This is about making them yourself. And they have to be unique. Every custom gradient has to be different, has to be unique. Every custom pattern has to be unique. I've got instructions here about how to create custom gradients. This handout will also be posted on Google Classroom. It isn't at the moment that I'm recording this, but it will be by the time you're watching it. So I've got instructions here about how to do that, and I also have instructions here about how to make a custom pattern. But I'm going to show you rather than read that to you. So what I'm going to do now is hop over to Illustrator. Here is the artboard that is available. You download that. And again, there's not that much on it. It's just keeps you organized. That's all. You got to fill these 5 circles with some custom gradients. You got to fill these 5 boxes with some custom patterns. So to do the gradients, I'm going to open up a couple of panels here. I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to Swatches. I want that one. And I'm also going to go to the Window menu, and I want Gradient. I'm going to get that one as well. Those are both going to be helpful. Let's see, where do I want to park them for this? I'll park them like right around in here. Yeah, let's center them up a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, here's the basic idea of this. Right now on this gradient panel, there's a black and white gradient that is shown here. And one way to make a custom gradient is to pick your own colors. To just take a color that you like. You just take a swatch that you like and you drop it onto this ramp right here. That's the technical name for it, the gradient slider or whatever. So you drop it on there and you get whatever colors you feel like you want. A gradient has to have at least 2 colors. It can have as many as you want. You can drag as many swatches over there as you want to, and you can spread them out however you want to. If you have a swatch on there that you don't want, you can click on it and pull down, and it goes away. A gradient does have to have at least 2. So for example, right now, if I wanted to get rid of that white, I could pull the white off, and I could just go with this. I could pull the black off too if I wanted to, and just go with this blue and orange, or I could put a whole bunch of colors on there if I wanted to. So that is one way to create your own custom gradient. Now, I've got this little thumbnail here. And I believe if I want to, you can take this little thumbnail over and drop it on the swatches panel if you want to do that. And now you have a swatch that has that gradient on it, and which could obviously be dragged and dropped right onto whatever shape you want to do. So again, and you can, on the swatches panel, you can go to that library button and get in here and look for different collections of colors. So that you have more to choose from than just this if you wish, right? I could go into color properties, and I like this desaturated palette here. So I might bring that desaturated palette, and I might just bring some of those colors that are on that palette over here. And I'm going to take the orange off, and I'll take that off. And I'm just kind of looking for some shades of green that are on here. All right. So I'm going to spread these out a little bit. I have customized the colors. Now here's another way that you can customize as you wish. Right up here on the type of gradient, you can work with the, right now it's a linear gradient, but it could be a radial gradient. I'll get to the freeform gradient here in a minute. All right. And once again, once you make a gradient, you could bring it over here and drop it on your swatches panel if you feel like you want to do that. It really isn't, you don't have to do that. I could take this thumbnail and drop it right onto a shape, and it works, right? So that's possible as well. So again, one way that you can make a custom gradient, and one of the primary ways that you can make a custom gradient is to pick your own colors. Do kind of do your own thing rather than just take whatever Adobe Illustrator gave you. Now, another thing I'm going to show you here is over here on the toolbar, there is a gradient tool. So I'm getting, I'm kind of getting to where I've got a lot of things going on here, but, well, and what I'll have to do here is I'll have to select I'll select circle and then go get the gradient tool. Now what this gradient tool does is allow you, if you select an object that has a gradient applied to it, the gradient tool lets me do things like stretch out that bar, and I can kind of just move it. I can move it off center a little bit. I could squeeze these things down. Some of the color stops are on there, so I can kind of redistribute the colors if I want to. I can grab this handle and stretch it out or make it smaller. I can do things like rotate. It's not going to be terribly different because it's a radial gradient on a circle. I could stretch it out this way. So there's a lot of manipulations I can do to that gradient by using the gradient tool. All right. So, and if I'm done using the gradient tool, I can switch back to the black arrow. And so now you see a little bit of difference there. If you're looking closely at that gradient, the hot spot on the gradient is kind of off center. And that's, that's kind of the look I was going for. All right, let's look into this freeform gradient. What you do here is I'm going to, I'll just go ahead, I'll click on this circle and I'll go ahead and click freeform gradient. And then I'll just start kind of dragging and dropping some colors onto the gradient. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I need the black arrow here. Freeform gradient, okay. And what you can do when you first click, that's my fault. When you first click on freeform gradient, you can add more points, or you can add what's called lines as well. So I could click in here and just add these little points wherever I want, and they can be moved if you grab them, and you can move them around and redistribute them however you want to. You can add them, you can redistribute them, you can move them around, and do whatever you like to those little points that are on there. And then what you can do is take a color and drop it on the point. And this creates some really smooth, and you can use a lot of different colors here if you wish, but you see the idea that I'm getting here? These are very mixed together, very kind of cloudy looking gradients. I'm going to drop another color in there, and let's go ahead and drop a color on there. And I don't know if that's the most beautiful thing ever, but you get the idea, right? And even with each one of these points, I can grab this little handle that's here, and I can make that bigger or smaller. So I have a lot of control over exactly where those colors are and kind of how they're blending together and how much of each one there is. And so I can play around with those as I desire, right? So you see the kind of gradient that I'm getting on that circle. That's another way to do a custom gradient. Okay, so we got to move on here. 5 different custom gradients. Again, one way to do it is pick your own colors, pick your own style, like linear, radial, and I would really encourage you to get in here and try out this freeform gradient where you pop in the little control dots wherever you want them, and then drop colors onto the control dots and see what you get. Okay. All right, so let's kind of move on from there. I'm going to move some of these panels sort of out of the way. I won't need them so much for this next part. All right, custom patterns. What are we doing there? All right, well, here's first thing I want to tell you about custom patterns. You can make a pattern from just about anything you want. And here's a very quick example. We'll do something super simple first. I'm going to go to the rectangle tool. I'll click and hold, and I'll just get the ellipse tool. I'm going to draw a small, I don't want it to be very big, I'm going to draw a small circle. On that small circle, I'm going to take a second here to say I don't want it to be stroked. You could leave it, you could have a stroke on it if you want. And I'm going to turn it purple. I'm just going to fill it with purple. And you could fill it with a gradient or whatever. You could do whatever you like. But you see, you see what I've got right there. It's just a little purple dot. That's all it is. Excuse me. So now what I would do is select that little purple dot. And there's a number of ways to do this. I'm going to show you this way. Here it comes. I'm going to go up to the Object menu up at the top. Object, and I'm going to come down and find Pattern. And then I'm sorry, I missed it there. I'm going to go find Pattern. I'm going to find Make. So I'll let that sit there for a second. Right? Object, Pattern, Make. That's the kind of the key to doing this. All right, so I'm going to click that. And you're going to get a box that pops up here. And you do have a don't show this again option here, but a new pattern's been added to the swatches panel. That's kind of important to remember, that this pattern that I'm going to build here is going to be on my swatches panel, which I have open, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click OK there. Now you're getting a preview of what this panel what your pattern would look like. I'm going to pull this pattern options window in a little bit closer. All right. Now you've got some choices here. Like I can drop this menu down where it says grid and I can brick it by row. See that? Or I can hex it, or brick by column. Sorry, I'll do that first. Or I could hex it by row. That's pretty tight. I don't think I really like it that tight. Or hex it by column. And there is a way to, I'll show you here in a minute, there's a way to spread those out a little bit. But you can play with grid, brick, hex, and you can kind of think, okay, what looks good? What do I like? What kind of pattern do I like? For the time being, I'm going to go with this brick by row. When you are happy with what you're seeing, when there's kind of not an OK button, or I'd say when you're happy and you know it, click OK. But up here at the top, we're kind of in a pattern editing rule or area right now. So I'm going to come up here and there's save a copy and there's done and there's cancel. Well, I'm going to say done. I'm good. I'm done. So I'm going to say done. And let's see, where did it say it was going to put that pattern? On my swatches panel, right? And if I look carefully, you'll see, oh, I've got a new little purple polka dotty pattern right there, which I can just drag and drop, and there it is. Looky there. So let's look at another quick example. What if I came along here and I get the star tool, and I'll just draw out a 5-pointed star, which I will fill with yellow, and you could stroke it if you want to. Those are things where you decide what you want. Okay, so I have and I wouldn't make whatever object you're going to use to do your pattern, I wouldn't make it real big, because patterns repeat is what happens. It's some kind of graphic thing that repeats over and over. So if you make it really big, it's not going to repeat very much when you put it inside a shape. So I'm going to take this star. I'll do what I did before, object, pattern, make. Oops, I missed it again. Object, pattern, make. And I've got that warning box that pops up here. And it's showing me what I've got. All right, right now it's on grid, but I could brick it or I could hex it or whatever I decide I want to do. Now I do want to show you this. If you check mark this little box that says size tile to art, you get the option to add some horizontal and vertical spacing, which could spread your, what it would do in this case, like if I say, okay, let's throw in like 10 points of spacing there, and I could throw in maybe, that doesn't look terrible, but I might throw in 5 points of spacing there. Just hit the tab key when you put a number in there if you want to see it. So I've added in some horizontal and vertical spacing, and it spread those out a little bit. So you have that option. You can kind of play with that. And so again, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you know what? That does not look bad to me. I'm kind of liking it. It's hex by column. I added some spacing. So I'm going to come up here to the top and say done. And then, do you remember where all patterns go on to what? Swatches panel. So I can bring this over, drag it, drop it. Custom pattern, looky there. Almost done with this. I do want to say that you can also, and I'm sorry for some clattering there, I'm getting my graphic tablet. These patterns can be very hand-drawn if you want them to. I'm going to go get the paintbrush. And what stroke color do I have? Okay, that's good. So I'm going to make like a little heart, kind of like that. Cool. I'll take that. I might size that just a smidge. It's maybe a little bit big. And for the stroke weight, I'm going to take the stroke weight down a bit, and I'm going to fill it with red. All right. So there. And again, you can make them out of anything you want. I'm just showing you that. This was something I drew myself, right? So I could take that and select it, and I go to Object, Pattern, see if I can get it this time. Object, Pattern, Make, click OK. And they're in rows right now because it's on grid, but I could do it however I want to do it. And if I check mark that size tile to art, I can throw in some horizontal and vertical spacing if I wish. Spreads them out a little bit. If I like what I got, I'm looking up at the top, I say done. My new pattern was added to my swatches panel, so here it is. And boom, a little pattern of hearts. One other thing I'm going to show you very quickly here, you can even do it with text. If I take the type tool, and this is not going to be at all fancy, I could play with fonts and everything as much as I wanted to, right? It's a quick demo. I could change the font, I could change the color of that, I could make it say whatever I want it to say. And then I can go to Object, Pattern, Make, click OK. Hello, hello, hello. All right. So and it's not, like I said, this is not anything big and fancy, but I'm making a pattern out of text. Okay, so I come up here and I hit done, and my pattern was added to my swatches panel, and there we go. So this assignment is about making 5 custom gradients and 5 custom patterns, and get a little creative, have a little fun, especially when you get down here to the custom patterns. When you're done making your patterns, these things right here that I use to build my patterns, I don't need to keep them anymore. I can just delete them, and they don't need to stay because the patterns are on my swatches panel. Well, that's the assignment. Once I have 5 and 5, I would just save that and turn it in. And so there you go. That's it.